this morning, it made me burst out in laughter. What I do want to talk about today is how we can help either our own organization or the organizations that we are serving scale a little bit more economically. As we know, scaling can be really, really expensive when it comes to Agile implementations, and it doesn't have to stay that way. But before we dive into that, I would love to break the ice a little bit. We're kind of a big group, so we might not be able to go person by person here. So in the chat, and this is always a nice way to just learn about each other's backgrounds, put in the chat how old you were when you got your very first job. And let's not count, babysitting for the neighbor across the street or anything, but the first job that was kind of at least a semblance of a company that you worked for. So how old were you when you got your first job, and what was it? British Army, 17, 14, newspaper delivery, office assistant, lifeguard, IT systems admin, at the Gap, restaurant hostess. Wow. And look how far we've all come. My first job was when I was 14 and I was a baker. I worked in the kitchen at a bakery and a farmer's market. And I did that all through high school. And now I do very different work. The other thing that I would love to learn is, what do you do? So you can put a 1 in the chat if you are a consultant or a coach that gets contracted by organizations. Please put a 2 in the chat if you are an internal employee at the organization, or 3 for other, and let me know what the other is. Awesome. I'm seeing mostly internal employees at organizations with a couple external coaches or consultants, coaches in self-retirements, VP of Ops. Awesome. Thank you. This is incredibly helpful. I have a couple different ways that I can narrate this, so I will kind of take it from a couple different angles and hopefully it will speak to you. And feel free at any point. I have much more fun when there's open dialogue. So please feel free to jump in at any point. I may or may not be able to see hand raises. I'm unfortunately just working off one screen today. So you have permission to interrupt me at any point if you want to ask a question or dive into anything greater, or challenge anything that I'm saying. You're more than welcome to do that. And I will make one final plea to please turn your cameras on. Do whatever you need to do to get camera ready. If that means putting a shirt on, please go do that. You won't miss anything in 2 minutes, I promise. But it is much more enjoyable for me to speak to a screen of faces. I would love for us all to be in person, but I will take a screen of faces as a runner-up. Thank you. It's so lovely to see you all. Hello. Okay, so we're going to start with a bit of a pop quiz. What do you think the average cost is of launching an art with a consultant? So if you were just going to hire external consultants to launch an art, you can put it in the chat. What do you think? And I know that there's lots of questions about all the different types of assumptions. Do your own back of the napkin math, and I will give you a few moments. An art is an agile release train. Your soul, yeah, sometimes it feels like that. 150, 250, 200. Yeah, we're kind of ranging all over the place. 2 million, 35. All right. So my back of the napkin math assumes that I am paying coaches what I generally hire them at, which is about $1,500 a day. You might be thinking about quitting your day job and talking to me later, and we could have that conversation if you want to, but that's what I have found is the rate that gets high quality coaches that want to stick around. So that's the assumption that I made in my back of the napkin math. And I also assume that in order to launch an art successfully, that art is going to need that coach full time, at least for the first PI, or for the first quarter-ish, if you're not too familiar with the SAFe terms. And then that availability or capacity can pare back about 50% every subsequent PI. So if you need me 100% of the time for the first PI that you launch in, you'll need 50% of me for the second round. And that's if I'm doing a good job. So with that, back of the napkin math, my calculation is about $170,000. And based on what I am seeing, that's about right. And there's some great assumptions coming through too. So I'm so glad that I see those coming in, because that is my next question. And this is where I will invite you to come off of mute and talk to me about what other factors contribute to launching an art in terms of consulting costs. So one was the training time. Absolutely. What else? Red, we'll give you the victory there.
Venue.
What was that one?
The venue.
The venue. Yeah, that can definitely have some costs associated with it. What else? What other costs might we see when we're launching arts with consultants that we might not see if we're using internal coaches? The org culture. Yeah, can you say more about that, Mike?
Some organizations adopt changes much faster than others, and you may have a ton of internal politics you're also fighting at the same time. That might also cause problems and slow things down.
Yes, absolutely. I see a couple of people commenting on that. Number of teams. So yeah, how big is this thing? What else? And feel free to unmute and just jump in. Or I'll call on you if I see you put something interesting in the chat.
I'm sorry, what was your exact question again? Could you repeat that?
I'm happy to, yeah. So, hopefully you can see the slide as well. So in addition to just paying the consultant, what other costs come with hiring consultants? Kate, can you say more about what you put in the chat? And Kate Casey, if you were talking, you were on mute.
Hey, sorry, Bria, I'm shoveling my lunch. Just coming up to speed with the organizational context and, becoming knowledgeable about what is being built, the teams, how long they've been together, how they work together, as well as the leadership, and similar questions about the leadership and kind of all areas of the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some other great things that I'm seeing in the chat as well. So there are lots of costs when we're talking about working with consultants, just that go far beyond the actual price of the consultants. They charge more for training, for example. They do take some ramp up time. So they take time to learn the culture and how to navigate that, as well as all of the internal systems that they need to learn how to work around. And you're paying them most of the time for all of that. Yeah, Joel, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I guess to me, a big question is, what do you mean by launch? Is it plausibly get people to the point where they've gotten through a PI? Or is it that the system is actually operating anywhere near the way it should be? And I have never seen an art get to that second stage in 1 or 2 PIs.
Yeah, that's a great point. So it's not necessarily the latter. A lot of the time, what I have seen work and what I prioritize and what you'll hear me talk about a lot in this particular talk is launching an art and supporting it to the extent that it can start to make those improvements and realize those benefits in a self-reliant way. So that is how I like to approach coaching and consulting. Is I'm not here to solve all of your problems, but I'm here to give you the tools and a possible operating model so that you can solve your problems with more agility and be able to respond to change. So that's the lens that I put on it. Thank you for asking that question. So the reason why I ask these questions is because there is a way to make this more sustainable. If you think about applying that $170,000 estimate to an art, and you are working in an enormous enterprise, let's say you're Fortune 500, for example, that can get really fucking expensive, pardon my French. So there is a way to make it more sustainable, and that is to invest in your internal coaching coalition. Now you might ask, how do I know that that's actually more sustainable? How do I know that that's actually more economical? And you might also think I'm crazy because I'm also a consultant and I might be talking myself out of a job here, but I promise I'm going somewhere with this. So I have another pop quiz for you. If you had skilled and capable internal coaches what do you think the average cost of launching an art would be using all FTEs? Thank you, Mike. And you can put this in the chat too. What is the average cost of launching an art using only internal coaches? 70K, 100K, 85, FTE, full-time employee. So someone that is employed full-time at the company, not an external contractor.
Are we counting the cost of the employees and their time?
So what would you essentially pay a internal full-time employee to launch an art?
Okay, just the coach, and okay.
Just the coach. Yeah, so I'm seeing, again, a pretty wide range. So based on the research that I've done and what I've seen in the field, if we want to assume that a coach makes about 150K a year, again, you might be pulling up Glassdoor and searching for a new job already, but that's just what I'm seeing is kind of standard or average. It's across the whole country though. That works out to be about $65,000 if we hold all of the other assumptions constant. So if we assume that we need all of their time for the first PI and they're doing a great job and they can pare back and start supporting other arts each subsequent PI, it's about 65K. If we look at how that scales, again, that turns into a fuck ton of money over time. You can save millions by prioritizing working internally. So you might be asking, you know, why am I saying all of this? It's so important to start this early. As we can see, you know, most transformations don't start with launching 25 trains right off the bat. If you are thinking about that, please talk to an external consultant and just get some other opinions. We do have a purpose, I promise. And at the same time, if we recognize that it's really important to start building an internal coaching coalition to do this in a self-reliant way, sometimes it can feel like that's not the most important thing to start on from day one. And so what I hope you learn by the end of this talk is why it is so critical and also does not have to be hard. It can be really easy to start these efforts from day one. So if you are an external consultant, I know we have some of them here, before you go running for the hills and either decide that you're in the wrong line of work and that you need to go find a company to hire you, or that I'm absolutely crazy and you'll never attend one of my talks, I promise. I've got good news for you too. We desperately still need you. And I am a consultant myself. I've worked with many different types of consultants. In my previous life, I worked at Scaled Agile for almost 5 years, and I ran the SPCT program. So I've coached lots of coaches and facilitated lots of facilitators, and I have seen every flavor of coach in the world. And what I have found is there are two extreme perspectives in the coaching world when it comes to account management strategy. One is, let's embed ourselves as deeply as possible in this account so that they need us forever, so that we have long-term sustainable income from a client. And the other is, let's teach them how to fish rather than giving them the fish. So if you're not familiar with this adage, it's, you know, teach a person to fish and feed them or give them a fish and feed them for a day, teach them to fish and feed them for life. And I'm very much of the belief system that it is so important for us to teach our organizations and enterprises to fish. And that is our job as consultants. And if you can get that reputation, you're going to stay in work and you're going to have work for a really long time. You might just not have the same client forever. And that's okay. I've seen it work really well. The organization that I do most of my consulting through is Elevate 2. And they have a wonderful reputation, partially for this reason. So I'm going to spend some time talking about the benefits of using consultants when it's appropriate to use consultants, and as consultants where we might be able to shift our focus. So if you're asking the question, if you don't want me adding value in these ways, well, how should I change my approach? And one of the things that I would love for us to talk about, and I'd love to open the floor for comments and thoughts here, is there's advantages to both. We talked about how difficult it can be for coaches to ramp up with a new culture, with new systems. And it may also be difficult for internal coaches to get all of the industry knowledge and subject matter expertise that they might need. So we can help them work better together. I truly believe that external consultants and internal coaches are like peanut butter and jelly. I personally love peanut butter and jelly, and I think they taste much better together than apart. And I'd love to hear from you what you think the benefits are that an internal coach can bring, and what are the benefits that an external consultant can bring. And feel free to drop notes in the chat, and I will do my best to read those out, or you can unmute and just add to the conversation live. So again, the question is, what are the benefits of internal coaches? What can they offer? And what are the benefits of external consultants? What can they bring?
If I may, internal coaches should understand the culture, how the company works, what are the challenges. I'm sorry, my camera is not on. I did turn it on, but it's malfunctioning, so I'm getting a yellow Snapchat kind of screen.
It's okay, at least you're colorful.
Yes, and external coaches, like you said, often have a better understanding of the industry, what other companies and clients are the challenges they're facing, and how they can apply those solutions to the company.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also seeing external, lots of different client perspectives. External brings unbiased and independent ideas. What else? What do others think?
I had a friend once that was hired because and they made her rates really, really expensive because they wanted people to listen to them. And they're like, we can't ignore this advice. It's really costly. They even forced her to put her rates up, and she was like, I'm not going to complain at that. So sometimes that can help as well, is that, you know, we better listen to somebody else. They're not inside our company.
Yeah, it helps for them to have kind of permission to be disruptive, right? You don't have to put your full-time job and all of your benefits and lovely paid time off on the line to maybe address and call out some elephants in the room. Absolutely. So yes, everything that you said is 100% true. You want internal coaches to work closely with external consultants, regardless of the type of actual coaching experience they have, because they can help serve almost as a Sherpa for the consultants and guide them through all of the internal networks. They can be politically influenced as well to influence, politically networked to influence, whereas, as Mike was just sharing, an external coach is more politically neutral. It's okay for them to be able to come in and disrupt a little bit. They're not as involved in the politics, and it's all, you know, I don't mind pissing people off. I'd much rather be the person that pisses people off and take on that risk for the people that I'm serving than have someone that's been there for 5, 10, 25 years throw something out that's going to be incredibly disruptive. Yeah, Max.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Thank you, Bria. Just a quick comment on that fact of the external consultant and the politically neutral. It might just be my experience because I've always been an internal employee, but I've interacted a lot with external consultants. And something I've noticed is that sometimes external consultants are brought in by a particular group of people with certain decision maker that might already have an agenda and a direction in set, right? Like here we're talking about mutually understand two groups working together, kumbaya, and an agile transformation. But how about when a group already comes in and says, okay, here's what we're gonna do. And the rest of us are like, that really isn't where our pain points are with delivering value faster and better to the customer. And so that is an experience that I've had that maybe goes into the political side, goes into what was decided even before people showed up on site.
Totally.
Not to be a party pooper, but just
no,
experience.
not at all. That happens too. There's definitely an opportunity for external consultants to be politically neutral. You don't always get that. I am certainly privy to those types of experiences as well, where the person that is sponsoring you has their own agenda, and you have to really skirt that line carefully to determine how disruptive can I really be, and also potentially not lose this work. And at the same time, if you're hiring the right people and they are really there to look at the bigger picture, sometimes they might be okay taking on that risk and having those harder conversations, or at least bringing the right people together to facilitate those conversations. Yeah, Giselle.
I always kind of, based on what we were just talking about, internal and external, I always make it a point that when I'm working with internal LACE or when I'm working with the internal coaches, to give them, to highlight them in front of leadership. That is a good payback system. When they help you out to just, I mean, you don't need the credit. You already are an external coach, and they already, you already have your credibility. But when you give credit to the internal folks, that really helps build that relationship.
100%. And thank you so much for bringing that up, because that's part of why I am such a large supporter of building internal coach development programs and leveraging external consultants and their subject matter expertise to do that. It helps rally people around the transformation when they see their internal comrades succeeding. So the reason why this talk is about building an internal coaching coalition via a coach development program is because it allows you to create that agile subject matter expertise internally, which in turn gets you to that self-reliance so much faster. And those subject matter experts are like the superheroes of Agile, because not only can they come in with that expertise, but they've also got the internal cultural, political, and neural networks that they need that make getting things done and having influence hopefully so much smoother. It also helps evolve the architecture and the systems, right? So some of the transformations that I've worked on, it takes a lot of time as a coach and consultant to understand the architecture and the systems that need to evolve in order for change to happen faster, for continuous delivery to happen faster, for releasing on demand to happen. Again, if you've got internal folks working this already, it can happen so much faster. It's also a great way to boost engagement and motivation during difficult times of change. So we all, I think, can attest to the fact that change is really, really hard. And I have seen so many people get disheartened by the challenges of change. And just when things, at least as a consultant, just when things get the most exciting, it usually means things are getting the hardest for the people internally. And having people involved in this early on helps create champions for that change. And it gives people an opportunity to see the bigger picture and to champion that change with their own internal networks, which is really something that's difficult for coaches to do, especially when they're working at a larger scale. In turn, that can help increase the buy-in for your transformation. And as we saw, save a little bit of money too, which never hurts. Yeah, Donald.
Yeah, one of the things that comes up for me is a lot of organizations, it depends on how much they promote the internal people to get external information, going to, Agile coach camps, or is it, no, you know what, we've developed our own internal Agile training. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to get any of that external information. And so that can really suppress the development of the Agile coaches and folks within the organization. But we're looking at kind of internal experienced coaches versus hiring external consultants. But I think in between there is, as you hire your internal team, you should be balancing that with promoting within, along with bringing in new folks externally, so that you can get people with different views, unbiased on the company history. So I'm not sure it's an either or. Sometimes it's somewhere in between to balance that out and have a well-rounded team.
Absolutely, yeah. And hiring those external coaches that are coming in as FTE members of your organization should 100% be part of that strategy. And at the same time, you're going to still come across many of the challenges that you would find with hiring external consultants, right? It's still going to take time for them to ramp up to the internal systems and networks and culture. It's still going to take time for them to have some of that political influence that hopefully internal coaches that have been there for a while might have. It is definitely a great way to make it more economical and sustainable over time. And so just to your point, it's so important to balance all of the different options there. Kate, you had your hand up.
Hey, Bria.
Hello.
So I would argue against bringing in consultants without investing in your internal coaches. You have the opportunity when you have consultants in there, if you hire the right consultants, to have very knowledgeable people about, you know, the subject, the process that you're implementing, whether it's Scaled Agile or whatever it is. They're extremely knowledgeable, and you're bringing them in, and you want as much of that knowledge that they have in their head to remain at your organization, right? And it's the opportunity to just have that that knowledge transfer throughout that time with people who then in their growth path are going to be able to then invest that knowledge into a new group of people as well when they've moved on to the next challenge, for instance, internally, you know, moved on to the next business unit or what have you to, you know, continue the implementation. They'll have grown people themselves that are then able to sustain that part of the organization that you started with. So I always shudder a little bit when I hear about, you know, people bringing consultants in and not investing in their own people.
100%. Thank you, Kate. And it's also a great way to start leading by example in terms of setting a culture for continuous learning, right? If we're showing people, hey, there's a path here for you if you want to get involved. It doesn't matter how much experience you have in this. We have a way to help you build these new skills that are incredibly translatable. And because we know they're so translatable, we're going to try really hard to keep you here and not just give you all these awesome skills and then let you go off and be a fancy consultant somewhere else. So it is so important to start this early and to focus on it, because not only does it have all of those amazing benefits in terms of motivating and engaging your internal workforce that Kate was speaking to, but it also gets really expensive, right? So you can make this case for people running the business. You could share this slide and share my back of the napkin math with them if you'd like, but it could save you millions of dollars over the long run if you prioritize this early and often. In addition to that, let's just say you worked at an organization. They're like, you know what? We don't really care about people development. We have all the money in the world. We can hire whoever we want at any time. All good, no big deal. Okay. The other challenge is it is really hard to find consultants, whether you're looking for consultants that are focusing on self-reliance or just looking for consultants that actually know what they're doing. There are a lot of us out there. This was from a LinkedIn search that I just did for people that have Agile Coach in their title. And I had 89,000 results. And I had done this same search 5 days prior, and it was 5,000 people smaller. Same location, all the same search criteria. So the number of Agile coaches in this space is growing at an astronomical rate. It is so hard to sift through all of those, even if you've got an awesome hiring team and you've got really well scaled interview and screening processes. I do a lot of that interviewing and screening for my clients as well, and just helping them vet through different consultants. And there's a lot of riffraff out there to sift through. It's really easy for anyone to put Agile Coach in their title, and you don't want to have to be playing that game forever. The other thing that's hard is if you do find those amazing consultants, chances are everyone wants them too. And I can attest to this personally. We love new shiny things. It's really easy to lose awesome consultants. And I can tell you as well that the consultants that I hire for the clients that I serve are usually leaving other gigs to come and work with us. And it's a real thing. It's really hard to keep consultants. And you do have to pay them a lot to get them to stay. And you're usually paying them because they're worth it. I was actually, as I was doing some research for this talk, I was reading the State of Agile Agile Coaching reporting from last year, and I learned that consultants are more than 2 times more likely to have engagements that are less than a year. So they jump around a lot. So essentially, the longer you wait to start growing this internal coaching coalition, the more expensive it's going to be, because not only are you going to be paying more for those consultants, but you're also going to have to be consistently onboarding new ones. And we've already talked through all of the other costs that go beyond just money when it comes to onboarding new consultants. At the same time, if you delay and you say, okay, well, you know what, it's just really important for us to get this up and running. We will definitely focus on a coach development program, but right now we just really want to get this going and launch some arts and show and deliver value faster. Let's just wait. At least from what I have seen and the coaches that I have coached and the programs that I have stood up in the past, it's at least 6 months for an FTE with minimal experience to be able to start coaching. Sometimes it's even closer to a year. So we still absolutely need consultants. It's kind of unavoidable unless for whatever reason you're blessed with the miracle of all of these consultants that you've now hired to start your own enterprise and you're doing your own agile transformation, which maybe that exists, but that's kind of a once in a blue moon opportunity, especially for the world's largest enterprises. So it is so important to find consultants that are willing to take the lens of self-reliance and, more importantly, are willing to partner with you and be the mentors for your internal coaches. There's a keynote speaker and he does a lot of coach leadership. He's won President's Lifetime Achievement Awards. And he has this quote that says, if you cannot see where you are going, ask someone who has been there before. And this just makes such a great case for, again, using external consultants to help you build your internal coalition. They are so valuable. They can see the forest through the trees. I always like, my friends have asked me, I recently actually became an independent consultant in the last year and a half or two. And my friends asked me how I like it. And the reason why I love it, one of the many, many reasons is because I can see the drama and I can see the politics and I can help coach through those, but it's not my shit. I can see the forest through the trees and I don't have to be as ingrained or as emotionally affected by the drama and the politics that are going on. And that allows me to be more of a neutral mentor and to really step in and help the people that are internal to the organization shine. So we want to make sure that as we're forming a coach development program, we are building the knowledge, skills, and mindset needed to be successful as a coach. And we want to make sure that we are leveraging great coaches to build to grow new great coaches. So this is what I recommend looking for when you are looking to hire consultants. So let's get into some of the nitty gritty.
Bria?
Yes.
I don't know if you may talk about it in a minute, which case I might just shut up. But one of the things I think is important if you're an internal and hiring externals is to make sure that the contract you set for those external people includes working with their internal people. Because otherwise you're at a constant fight between distracting them from what you're paying them to do. I mean, distracting them's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
And then that can come as a conflict.
100%. And it's a great, and I'm not talking so much about contracting, so I'm glad that you brought this up, Mike. It's a great way to also screen to make sure that you're getting the right consultants in. If they don't want to sign that type of contract, probably not the right person for you. Yeah, Faisal.
Yeah, I had a similar question, but and please feel free to tell me that this is not the right forum for it. But what are some of the clauses that are included in the contract in terms of like performance, or these are the deliverables that we need to meet?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to dive into that. Could I ask you to hold it? I hope we will have a little bit of time for some open forum at the end. And if not, and you have some contracting questions, I'm happy to chat offline and give you some ideas there, or we can continue the chat and meet up or have different forums for that. Is that all right?
Sure.
So let's say we're all on board with, yes, it's really important to have an internal coach development program, consultants that can support it, and to start right away. So how do we do it? I can't build your internal coach development program for you because every organization, as you know, is a unique butterfly. But these are some things that I find work really well in terms of getting the right foundation in place. So the first thing is, don't let anything stand in your way. There are so many excuses that you can come up with as to why you can't do this right away. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can start so simply. You don't need big, robust software to track all the learning journeys for people. You can just start identifying individuals within your organization that might be interested in this. And you don't need to change their job description. You don't need to change all their responsibilities. Just get them shadowing folks. Get them paired with some consultants and get them learning through osmosis and shadowing experts on the job. And maybe receiving a little bit of mentorship. It can start off really informal as a safe way to test and see see what might work for you. And I love the shadow pair lead model so that you're not just stuck in shadow mode. As your mentor starts seeing that you're more and more confident and capable in certain things, they can also help encourage you to teach part of a class together. I remember when I first started at Scaled Agile, Inbar came in 6 months after I had started, and he was like, hey, I'm teaching and implementing SAFe class. Do you want to come be our RTE? You've already been through 2 PI plannings. This might be fun for you. And I was able to come in and be an RTE for a class. So there's lots of different ways that you can grow your ability to develop coaches internally without making anything crazy formal that's going to potentially get stuck up against a bunch of red tape. If anyone, well, I guess, is anyone familiar with the Shu-Ha-Ri principle? Yeah, Mike, what is it?
Sorry, just finding my mic. So it's like, I mean, the way I see it, the first step is just kind of like blindly follow the rules, you know, pump your fists backwards and forwards and not really understand why you're pumping your fists. The second one is to experiment with the rules. And like, what happens if I change my fist a different way? What happens if I, you know, maybe I do a stand up on the back of a turtle? What happens? Right. And then the third one is to come and like invent new rules and invent new ideas and move through that.
Yes, thank you. So I love applying this principle to how I consult. I do generally promote SAFe as a great framework. I'm a little biased because I worked at Scaled Agile for so long, and yes, so is Kate. And I tend to approach it in this way, and this is why I think it works, because we do have a set of practices, principles that have been proven to work, and it's at least a starting point, right? It doesn't have to be prescriptive. It's let's at least just start here so that we don't have to spin our wheels with how we want to start. And then we can evolve from there, and we can test the waters, and we can break the rules and figure out what works, and then we can be our own rules. And I love applying this to our shadow pair lead matrix as well, where as soon as you feel like someone's gotten enough exposure to be a little bit uncomfortable pairing, that's the best time to encourage them to try to deliver a part of a SAFe training, for example, or try to coach a team through a conflict, or try to do any myriad of things. And so one thing that I recommend is, again, a really light way to get started. You don't need anything fancy. Build a grid. Talk about all of the different types of experiences that you feel are really important for your internal coaches to get. And this is where an external consultant can really help you. And then talk about what are the different types of activities that you might expect someone to be able to do if they're in shadow mode versus pair versus lead versus mentor, and just help them progress through that. You also, once that's in place, then you can start to work with your external consultants to really build out a full rubric. So you want to talk through with your external consultant, what are the most important things that we should expect our internal coaches to be able to know, practice, and understand before they can lead on this, before they can pair on this, before they can teach someone else this. And again, you don't have to have super fancy systems in place. You can do this on a mural board. You can do this in a spreadsheet. If you want to work with a learning development department that you've got internally, you can do that too. Or you can get fancy and more automated, right? But you can blow out that kind of activities matrix and the categories for all of the different activities you'd like someone to participate in. And then just get really clear on what possible learning objectives there might be, and have a way to measure progress for your coach candidates along the way. So you can say, okay, well, let's talk through. What experience do you have in these areas that we can already apply? You can have a, hey, in order for you to progress to pairing or leading or mentoring, we'd love for you to be a 4 out of 5 in this area, for example. And then you can track progress as you go. It's also a great way to just help coaches internally seed the path. And then we also want to make sure that we're expanding learning methods and opportunities once we have those first 2 pieces in place. So not everyone is a kinesthetic learner. It's great to be able to learn by osmosis, but sometimes people just want to sit down and read a book, and then be able to talk about it later. And so setting up a more robust program is something that you can plan for in the long term. And if you're not familiar with the Varch model, it's just a nice summary of all the different ways that people like to learn. There's visual, auditory, reading, writing, and kinesthetic, which is touching and experiencing things for themselves. And so you want to make sure that you're making space for all types of learners to be able to succeed in this type of program. And that can look like a lot of different things and activities. You can have a community of practice that covers all of these things. Or one thing that I saw in the organization was, hey, you know what? We actually don't have bandwidth to support a full-on coaching development program right now, but we can at least start a book club. We can at least get people learning and reading about mindset and building some skills and talking about it together. And that takes so little supervision, no policing. Read whatever the hell you guys want to read and talk about it. And it helps build that culture of self-starting and autonomy and continuous learning. It's great to have role-playing scenarios. I know at the Scrum Master COP that Skilled Agile hosts, Scrum Masters were able to come in, bring a really difficult situation, and watch other people role play it to get ideas for how to potentially handle it. You could do the same thing with up and coming coaches. You can do lunch and learns from external consultants or subject matter experts. You can offer things for self-study. You can have one-on-one mentoring with external consultants, opportunities to pair together and do some peer work, group learning. So there's so many different ways that folks like to learn. So you don't, again, have to start with something incredibly robust. There are a lot of really light options here for you to be able to start to experiment with what types of formats might work well for the coaches that you've got internally. And then one thing, this isn't really step 4. I actually think this applies at every single step, but you want to make sure that you've at least got scalability in mind when you are building out the foundation of all of this. So what works well for your first 5 beta coaches, for example, might not work great when you get to the point where you've got 50 people going through this program. And you don't necessarily have to start with a program that is easy for 50 people to get through, but just start thinking, if we start here, can this easily translate into something that 50 people could get through? And just keeping that in mind, right? You don't have to have all the answers, but I promise you, just by thinking about that and keeping it in the back of your mind as you start to build out even the lightweight version of this, is you're going to make it more scalable. And then overall, just tips for success. And then Max, I will get to your question. As I'm sure all of us know, since I think we're all Agilists to some degree, maintaining customer centricity and being really clear on who your customer is in all of this is one of the most important things that you can do. Our coaches are our customer, right? The internal coaches that are going through this program are our customer, but also our customer's customer is our customer. So who are those coaches serving? Who are those coaches going to be working with? We want to make sure that we're getting feedback from them as well. One of the things that I love doing is running coaching programs, as if you couldn't tell. And whether I'm helping to support external consultants or internal coaches, I'm always making sure that I'm setting aside time to talk to the people that those coaches are serving to see if they're being served well or what could be done differently, because that also helps evolve your program. And if you are new to Agile HR, we want to avoid having super structured check-ins where it's every year we're going to check in and see how this person is doing and conduct a performance review. We just want fast feedback loops. Even if it's sending a Slack message, if you're looking at a coaching program of 50 people and they're serving 50 different arts across your organization, ain't no one got time for 50 different one-on-ones. But even just a way to check in regularly and get some feedback and make it safe and create that psychologically safe environment to grow as a result of that feedback is so important. And so having the conversations with your internal coaches, with your customer, with your external consultants around what are the pieces we want feedback on is so, so important. And then, as I mentioned, psychological safety is so, so critical to this. You're going to have coaches internally that may have never coached anything in their lives, and they're just really excited about this opportunity. So they're not going to get everything right. And they are going to be able to learn a lot, but they're not going to be able to do that if it's not safe for them to do that by failing. So creating that psychologically safe environment, if you don't have that, please work on addressing that first before you even start thinking about consulting and coaching, or bring some consultants in to help you with that psychologically safe culture. But this is a Harvard Business Review article. It's linked at the bottom of this slide. I'm happy to share these slides after. I highly recommend giving it a read and sharing it with as many people as you can. It's all about psychological safety. And I'm just going to read it because it says it so much better than I could. Having high psychological safety elicits a performance response with innovation as the goal. So if we're trying to get to the re portion, shuha re, where we're making our own rules, we need psychological safety to do that. If we have environments of punished vulnerability, so we don't have psychological safety, it leads to mechanical agility. We're only agile in name. We're just going through the motions, but we're not actually achieving the results that we want. Yes, Max, thank you for bearing with me.
No, absolutely. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was just, I'm not sure if it's intended or not, but we've been seeing the same slide for the last 20 minutes or so.
Oh my
So
goodness.
that
is totally not intended. I wonder what happened.
That's the slide that I messaged you, and I was like, "This is a great slide."
Oh, okay. Well, I'm so glad
It's the
that I will share
internal
this
and
slide.
external. Yeah. Okay. Just
There
wanted
are
to
so
make
many
sure that
more-
you were aware. That's
I
all.
had no idea. So thank you so
Okay.
much. I'm glad that you were just listening rather than reading slides. I will share these afterwards. So thank you so much for letting me know. You can see my slides now. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. Should have called on you sooner, see? Okay, so in summary, and I wanted to make sure that we had at least a little bit of time for feedback and questions. Coach development programs can really make or break your implementation in the long run. And if you are an external consultant and you truly want your clients to succeed in the long run, you have to help them do this. Unless you plan to be employed there forever, in which case you may as well just talk about full-time employment. As an external consultant, I would challenge you to reframe your charter, if you haven't already, to focus on the self-reliance of your customers, to serve as the mentors for building the internal skills and knowledge that their coaches need in order to succeed, because ultimately that's going to get you the reputation that's going to come get people knocking down your door for your help. And it's very easy to get started with this. You do not need to go through a bunch of red tape. All you have to do is identify just a couple people that are maybe interested in this. They don't have to have a huge commitment. They don't have to carve out a ton of time, and just invite them to do some shadow work. Not the like woo-woo spiritual shadow work of look at the dark side of yourself, but shadow some experts. Invite them to watch an expert coach a conflict, or observe an INA, or just be a fly on the wall at someone else's PI planning. That's just a matter asking for a matter of hours out of someone's work week versus a total shift. And I will leave you with this quote. We'll come back to the finance conversation. So you can pretty much buy any technology, but your ability to adapt to an even more digital future, which, let's be honest, that's kind of where things are heading anyway, depends on developing the next generation of skills, closing the gap between talent, supply, and demand, and future-proofing your own and others' potential. So the best way, so I'm speaking not only to the organizations, but also to the consultants as well, the best way to future-proof all of this is to really help grow and be the tide that lifts all ships. And that's kind of where I see myself having the most joy in the work that I do, is when I can see that the tide is actually being raised. When I see that the tide is rising, and I can see everyone being elevated to a higher degree of skills and competency, that's how I know that things are going to be successful and how things are going to work. So please feel free. I am always happy to nerd out on this type of conversation. Here is my contact information. You are more than welcome to get in touch with me at any time. And we've got about 5 minutes left. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have now. And also, this is brand new IP. This is the first time I've delivered this to any group. So I'd also love your feedback either now or after via email on what you thought and how this could be made even better.
I'll ping you after I get to see the slides too.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much, Bria.
Yes, thank you. I'm just going to take you all backwards through the slides so you can at least believe that they exist. I'm really interested in shadowing, Logan says. Where are some organizations or mentors I should connect with? Great question, Logan. Where are you working now, or what are you doing for work now?
Right now, I am in transition. I'm mainly volunteering at a few small businesses, kind of getting my agile coaching, going. But I'm still very, very much a rookie. So there's a tea company and there's also a tea farm. And then I'm looking at a conscious space, so it's a little bit more hippie. So yeah, that's kind of like my background in a nutshell.
Awesome. I love it. So to make sure that I understand your question correctly, if you're not an internal FTE and you're interested in becoming a coach, how can you get some of this experience as well? Is that your question?
Yes.
Cool. That one can be a little bit tricky, right? Because a lot of the time you need to have NDAs in place and contracts in place in order for you to start shadowing with other consultants that are doing this work for clients. My recommendation would be a couple different things. You could reach out to some organizations about forming kind of like an internship. So interns are there oftentimes for free. So you might not be able to get paid to shadow, but that might be a really great way of setting yourself up to get exposure to some of those things. You could also reach out to some experienced consultants and coaches in the field and see if they would just be open to some one-on-one mentorship so that they can talk you through a couple of the things that they're seeing without breaching any confidentiality and, talk to you a little bit one-on-one about ways that you could get started. A lot of the time you could also look at organizations that are hiring more entry-level agile coaches. So maybe start as a scrum master in some place or in some space and find a way to start to shadow and pair more experienced scrum masters or coaches internally there as well. So those are just some ideas to get you started. I'm happy to also spend some time and chat with you further about that. I got lots of ideas.
Well, thank you.
Sure. And there we go. Faisal is looking for a scrum master. So there's her email. Reach out to Faisal.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Faisal.
Thanks for the plug.
Yes. Giselle, yeah.
Yeah, so the Scrum Master, now I'm beginning to feel, is not the best way to get in to go up to a coach. In my most recent experience now, the Scrum Master's role was very reduced. Even the daily stand-ups are now being conducted by the product owners. And the Scrum Master is really left to just like the first, what have you been working on? And even I looked on the skilled agile side when I faced that, and I saw that from the team videos, it was all about the product owner now, not about the Scrum Master. Where is that role going? Because I thought that was a stepping stone to get up to an agile coach.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There are still definitely amazing content for Scrum Masters from Scaled Agile. I am actually wondering if maybe they changed the title of that already. It may be team coach. So if things aren't showing up, if you're searching for Scrum Master, maybe try searching for team coach. I would also just recommend resetting on expectations within the organizations where you're seeing some of those patterns or anti-patterns emerge. It can be really easy, and I've even seen this at Scaled Agile, for Scrum Masters to get pigeonholed into more of a project coordinator or gopher type of role, where really it's so important for them to be elevated as the coach for the team, to help the team hone in on their agile practices. So it might also just be a great opportunity to reset expectations within the organization that you're working with as well.
Right, but it's very difficult to have a credibility in a new organization if you don't seem to be contributing, and then to make a suggestion. They don't seem to take that because also the product owner, before it used to be like when I did, it was like version 4 or something, they used to say that you protect the team for the product owner. And now it's vice versa. As the product owner works with the developers to clarify stories and keep each other updated as to what has been accomplished. And the Scrum Master is often just left out there. So to me, it's like you might, in some organizations, especially in product organizations, you might be better off starting as a product owner and going up.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different roles within an organization that lend themselves to building translatable skills to agile coaching. We could definitely dive pretty deep on how to address the issue with Scrum Masters in particular, and I'm happy to talk through and spitball some other possible approaches that might work. I also want to be respectful of everyone's time. We are at the top of the hour. If you want to stay on for a couple extra minutes and chit chat, I'm more than happy to. And thank you all so much. Thank you especially to Leland and Ben and crew for asking me to join this meetup. This meetup actually has a very special place in my heart. When I started at Scaled Agile, one of the things that I did was help evolve the meetup program, and Leland was one of the first meetups that I supported in all of that. So it's really, really an honor to be able to come back and see just how much it has grown and flourished.
Excellent. Thanks for your time, Bria. Really appreciate it. We'll stop the recording, but we can hang out for a few more minutes if anybody has any questions or just wants to chat.